Is Arwen our first marquee character in Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-Earth worth the hype? Let's find out. By the time you watch this, her event will have probably gone live, and that will allow you to do a completely free-to-play unlock for her to gain 100 shards, which will allow her to be summoned at 3 stars. As we're looking to take her up to 5, on the assumption that she's one of the characters we can use to unlock the first legendary Lord Elrond, we're actually going to take her up to 5 stars. So it's 310 shards to do that. We get 100 from the event, so we're opening her chests to make sure we get at least 210. The most of the drops that we get here are 17, which is the highest percentage chance on the roller coaster of RNG that is this sort of event. And due to my inability to count very well, I think we open at least 1, maybe 2 more chests than we needed to. So that's a lesson for next time. Stay in school, kids. But we then summoned her up and take her up immediately to 4 stars. And when her event drops later, I'll be able to add that 5th. What we're going to do today is then skip over me pressing equip all for all the various gear tiers. We'll save you that pain. We'll cut the video in a moment to when we've got her leveled up. And whilst I intend to take her to gear tier 8 eventually, we're not able to take her quite that far there, as we're a little bit short on gold and gear. So for now, I'll fast forward to where we are once we finish the gearing up process, and then we're going to have a look at some of her abilities. So we're able to take her up to gear tier 6 and ability levels 3, 4, 4, and 4, and we'll take a look at those abilities now. And we'll start off with her passive. This is a pretty great ability that does add a lot of survivability to the team. The first time each one of the squad gets low, she's going to throw a stack of nimble on them, allowing them to evade the next attack that would hit them. If they're a light character, she'll also cleanse a bane, and she gains some extra damage. So in the short term, this is worth taking all the way up to level 4, despite the cost. That means she's always going to be chucking out that nimble. She grants a little bit of extra damage to herself as well. And you'll see as you start to use this how much benefit that adds. Her basic is a nice straightforward attack, does some damage, and has the ability to throw a stack of defensive on the most wounded squad member. So again, a little expensive, but when you can, I would take that up to level 4 to increase the chance that she's almost always going to throw out that defensive onto the most wounded squad member. And when you combine that with her other abilities, you see where a lot of this sustain and survivability for the team comes from by having Arwen on the squad. Her special one, Deadly Earnest, is going to attack single target damage and also remove some boons. Interestingly, though, she then grants herself turn meter. You want this to be as high as possible, eventually being one of the few abilities we want to max out at level 6, as it means, provided she's got at least 4 boons on her, when she takes her turn, uses this ability, she's immediately going to gain 100% turn meter and be able to take a second turn. That's going to help get her to her special 2, Evening Star, which has got a longer cooldown ability, but again, very powerful. It's going to remove banes from the most wounded squad members. It's going to throw out regeneration to the whole team. If there's a Rivendell member and you take this to level 3, it's going to put immunity on them. So again, we probably want to take this up to level 5 as soon as we can, because it's going to reduce the cooldown, being able to be used every 4 turns, and in conjunction with her special 1, that is actually quite often. We'll look at some arena footage now. We almost attacked our guild buddy Jay Coops there before recognizing his name at the last moment and switching to a new opponent. Our enemy here is the very common setup we see: Ugluk, Strider, Eowyn, Halbarad, and Ironhide. We start off with traditional fashion Elra here doing his best to nearly die. A stack of Nimble, however, is mean he's going to dodge this upcoming very large AoE from the enemy Ironhide, and we're focusing down their Halbarad. We know that if he gets around to a second big heal, it makes it almost impossible to win. So focusing down on him, throwing out some regens there, and just making sure we take down the enemy Halbarad as fast as we can. Arwen we'll see throughout the fight is granting a stack of Nimble the first time any one of our team gets below 50% health. And when she can get around to her special 2, she's going to clear some Banes and also throw out some heals. So in quick succession there, we took down Halbarad and Eowyn, stuck briefly behind that taunt on Ugluk. We were then able to get another heal out, start focusing on burning down Strider. So at the moment, we're running a 5 versus 3. Again, Ugluk putting up that taunt. But we then get ourselves into a 5v2. And even the Rangers are fairly good at not snatching defeat from the jaws of victory when we get this far into the fight. So we're not going to make it all the way to the end with the whole team, but importantly, what Arwen did over Miri, our previous 5th member of this team, is just bring enough sustain and survivability to let us get to this end part of the fight where we can then use our fairly impressive sustain from Halbarad and some decent damage to win the fight. So as you can see, that's a very big G8 Ironhide who's hitting incredibly hard. But those nimbles, those regens, that was enough to make sure Halbarad again can get out another big heal. And that's going to get us some success here. So just a couple more attacks, and we're going to find that we get ourselves a rare victory using our Rangers in Arena. Not only that, but we get promotion up into the Mithril League. Whether or not we stay there at payout is, of course, a different story. Now we're going to try Arwen in some of the harder campaign nodes. This is the hard mode within Light Campaign Chapter 5. So we've sped this up so you don't have to watch the whole thing drag out. But what we find is that whilst the entire team doesn't make it to the end, this was a node that previously I wasn't even able to get a 1-star on. So she is providing some excellent survivability for the rest of the team. Those nimbles really do help. That's going to be, at the very least, one big AoE, or more likely 5 individual attacks from the other side that aren't going to do any damage. And we have seen that the enemies on these nodes do hit incredibly hard. So we probably need to be a little higher on our character levels and our sort of player level to be able to get through it with the clean 3 stars. But what Arwen is doing is making sure that Halbarad is around long enough to keep getting that heal off, and the fact that we're cleansing Banes when we can, and she's getting that extra turn meter whenever she uses her special 1, means that she's taking those extra turns. We're trying to get that heal out as often as we can. So yeah, very pleased with her as a character. I think she's going to fit in really well within my light side team. Previously, I was using Lady Eowyn, but as I'm not investing in the Rohan team, it didn't feel good to kind of have her at lower level and struggling to land her abilities. So she, for me, is a great replacement on that team. It means I can run the 4 Rangers and Arwen there. We get more than enough damage from Strider and from Elra here. Miri is probably, I say probably, she is the weakest of the Rangers. That's no surprise. Her damage isn't quite high enough to really suitably offset that low health that she has. And whilst it is nice that she grants a little bit of a heal to Halbarad due to how his passive interacts with her gaining stealth, yeah, she doesn't feel like she's really contributing to the team in the same way that the rest of them are. So I imagine as more elf characters come out, Eladan hopefully being the next one, I will probably then look to replace her with him. So that will give us another character for campaign that's going to be able to have some protection. So that's someone else that can proc the passive Arrow of Rivendell on Elrahir, and he's also got some synergy built into Elrahir. That's assuming that the kit that they use is the same one that we can see in the game on the enemy. There might be some changes. So yeah, very interested to see how that plays out, and whether or not Eladan gets the Ranger tag as well will be pretty helpful. But yeah, in conclusion, very pleased with Arwen. She's not this kind of world-shaking, meta-changing character on her own, but I think alongside the other Rivendell characters, the elves, and of course her father, Lord Elrond, I think we'll all be pretty impressed at what the first legendary and this new team is going to be able to bring to the game. So hope you found that helpful.